When the oceans rise and the skies turn dark, a flood like no other threatens to destroy every living thing on Earth. Now, the only thing that stands between life and death is a marvel of engineering, an ark, empowered by God and crafted by a man named Noah to combat the flood. What caused this cataclysmic event? Who exactly was allowed onto the ark? And who missed the boat? Join us as we explore the untold story of Noah's Ark. A long time ago, the world was ruled by chaos. It was a place where humanity had turned their hearts towards evil and destruction, needlessly engaging in violence and warfare. The common folk were unconcerned with the plight of their fellow man, choosing to ignore them, and in some cases, retaliate for any perceived inconvenience to their day. The land was consumed by sin, and God above took notice from the heavens.
For too long has sin been permitted to run rampant in this world. Is my greatest creation truly beyond saving? Is there no one righteous left to help me start anew?
God turned his attention outward and surveyed the entirety of the planet. Amongst the darkness, there was one man who stood out as a beacon of light. His name was Noah. Noah was a righteous man who had not turned from the path set forth by God. He had remained faithful, even as the world around him succumbed to evil. God looked upon Noah and knew that he was exactly what he was looking for. As Noah finished his toils for the day, a brilliant golden light shined down from the sky, and out from it stepped the mighty form of God himself. Noah immediately threw himself to the ground in veneration and listened as God spoke to him in a booming voice.
Hear me, Noah. I am going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I will summon a great flood that will wipe away the sinners. On account of your righteousness, you and your family will be spared. To that end, you are to build an ark, a mighty vessel that will protect you from the coming waters.
In response, all manner of emotions ran through Noah's mind: awe, confusion, fear. But what Noah felt most of all was resolve. His God had chosen him for this task, and Noah would see it through, no matter what. But there was more. God was very specific as to the manner of the ark's construction. The vessel was to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. And that was not all. Noah and his family were also charged by God with gathering 2 of every living creature, male and female, on board the ark with them. Finally, the monumental task had to be finished within 7 days, at which time the flood would be upon them. Noah had his work cut out for him.
I will build it, Lord. You can count on me.
I know I can. Good luck, my child.
With that, God departed, and Noah was left to mull over the mission he was set upon. He began immediately gathering wood from the trees nearby his house until they were all plucked bare. The ark would need to be a mighty build, and after spending nearly a day searching for materials, Noah knew he could not take on this task alone. And so, Noah gathered his family in order to plan out the difficult week ahead. His wife, Zara, stood by his side, always a supporting presence. His sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, were also determined to help in any way they could. Shem was the first to speak up.
You have done well on your own, Father, but we'll need to gather more wood. The beams for the hull will need to be thick and strong.
Shem's brother, Ham, supported the notion.
Father, I believe the trees to the east are still untouched, but the journey is long, and the mobs are dangerous out there. We'll need protection.
Finally, Japheth brought the point home.
Then let us depart, brothers. We can fight any that stand in our way. We have less than 7 days to enact God's will. There's no time to waste.
As Noah's sons departed to gather resources for the ark, Zara turned to her husband.
You are a man of great faith, Noah. We will help you, as we always have. This world may fall, but we shall stand firm.
Thank you, Zara. Now, there is work to be done. Let us begin.
Noah and Zara began to make preparations. After all, they were soon going to be host to 2 of all living creatures on the planet, for 40 days and 40 nights no less. Food would be scarce, and so they got to work on harvesting. They were joined by their daughters-in-law, Nahalem, Zedkat, and Arathka, all pitching in to make the work go fast. As Noah's family toiled in the fields and hunted for materials, far away on the other side of the continent, another family heard the news of the coming flood. God's message had reached all the non-human creatures on Earth, including a mob that is otherwise unseen in our time: unicorns. In a clearing of a distant lush forest consisting of a father, mother, and daughter, the family of the beautiful equine beings were gathered, their coats shining brightly in the sunlight. Dozens of mobs rushed past the family, From cows to frogs to sheep to sniffers, everyone raced to secure their place on the Ark to escape the coming flood. The unicorn patriarch ushered his family along after them, and, with heavy hearts, they bid farewell to their home, turning to join the growing crowd of desperate mobs. Little did they know their trek would be earth-shatteringly difficult, and that not every mob would make it on board the Ark. Their trial for survival had only just begun. Meanwhile, Noah's son Ham arrived at his destination. A vast region full of harvestable resources lay out before him, and he quickly set himself upon his task. His brothers Japheth and Shem were on similar resource-gathering missions just beyond the ridge. While Ham worked and worked, morning turned to day and then to night. The son of Noah had been rewarded for his efforts, having gathered just enough material he'd need for his share of the Ark. Unfortunately for him, though, he was being watched. A horde of the undead, spurred into action by their usual prey's sudden departure from the area, shambled forward, eager for a late-night snack. In the dark of night, the zombies set upon Ham with little warning. Ham pulled loose his sword as he faced down the monstrous beings. God had entrusted his family with ensuring the survival of all species, but the undead, Ham reasoned that these ghouls were the exception and let loose. In this moment, he was not only fighting for his life, but for the future of all life on Earth. Ham fought bravely, but the zombie horde continued to descend upon him. And just when all hope seemed lost, the sound of a crossbow being fired rang out before a zombie was struck by an arrow and collapsed, dead once more. Ham looked at the tree line only to see a piglin mounted atop a strider, a sight unheard of in today's time and still highly confusing to Ham. The piglins strode up, and Ham saw something in their eyes. They were on his side.
Aha! The piglin is here to help me! They come seeking refuge on the Ark! Praise be to God!
Together with his new piglin ally, Ham made short work of the remaining zombies. After the battle was done, Ham and the piglin gathered together. The pig-like creature had an odd way of communicating. Ham, however, for some unknown reason, had a rapport with the piglin, and he was able to broker an agreement. Protection on the road now for safe travel on the Ark upon its completion. Together, the piglin upon its strider and Ham on foot set off back to Noah's home, where construction could truly begin. As Ham returned to his family's homestead with the piglin and another they picked up on their journey, he found Noah hard at work preparing the foundation for the Ark's build. With such a complex construction, everything had to be planned out perfectly, and Noah wasn't taking any chances when it came to God's will. Japheth and Shem returned from their voyages around the same time as Ham, and they too were packed to the brim with materials. Noah had several material chests set up, ready to go for his boys to drop their hauls into. Noah was not expecting the arrival of the piglins and their striders, however. To his surprise, the piglins offered to help with the build.
Come, Father. More hands means less work.
I think you mean more hooves in this case, brother.
Noah happily accepted the help, and together, Noah, his family, and the piglins got to work. The materials Noah's sons had gathered were plentiful, but even so, the Ark was required by God to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Even with the increased manpower, the deadline was fast approaching, and only 5 days remained until the flood would be upon them all. Despite the threat of their impending doom, Noah's workforce kept a steady pace and was able to make substantial progress quickly. Of course, when you're building a multi-story tall boat, you tend to draw attention. A couple from the village down the road noticed the build and came by to see what exactly their eccentric neighbor was up to. What kind of monstrosity is this? Who on earth needs a boat this big?
It is my lord's command. Join me in its construction if you like, so that you might survive the coming flood as well.
A flood? In this season? Ridiculous. Besides, we would be caught dead associating with a cuckoo like you.
So be it. I wish you both well. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do.
Noah's neighbors departed with a bemused shrug while he continued to work, unfazed by their mockery. His mission was clear, and nothing would keep him from seeing it through. The neighbors spread the word of Noah and his family working with piglins to build a boat of all things. It was a ridiculous notion. Villagers from nearby settlements stopped by simply to laugh and jeer at the sight. Noah's sons were at first ashamed, left wondering if they were truly doing God's will at all. Here they were, toiling for days on end, all at the whim of a 600-year-old man. It wasn't until Noah's wife Amzara spoke up that their confidence was regained.
You will respect your father. He is an honorable man. He would not make up such a notion. Think hard on why you would be so quick to cast doubt on he who has housed you and fed you.
Noah's sons were ashamed of their fleeting apprehension, and thus Emzara's words spurred them into working even harder and faster. Their family was tight-knit, and any doubt they had quickly gave way to resolve as they worked long into the night. As Noah's family labored away on the Ark, another family was continuing their journey across the land. The unicorns had been following the herd of mobs, but had paused at a pond so that their little one could take a rest. They had been traveling for days now, and were still only halfway to their destination. As they rested, the young unicorn noticed something in the pond's water. A ripple formed as a distant booming thud rang out. The family sprang to full attention and surveyed their surroundings. Another thud, and then another. The father knew all too well what was producing these sounds. He urged his family to sprint, or else they'd be done for. All three of the unicorns took off galloping, just as a prehistoric creeper-like dinosaur busted through the tree line. It roared a ferocious, bellowing roar and began to give chase. The family of unicorns dodged and weaved through the forest as the lumbering ancient creeper dinosaur followed closely behind, knocking down trees and quickly gaining on them. The family ran and ran until they came up to a cliff's edge. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The family huddled together as the creepersaurus stared down at them, ready to feast. Suddenly, another bellow broke out nearby. The unicorns turned their attention towards the sound, as did the creeper creature. Standing before them all was none other than a gargantuan ancient sniffer. The ancient sniffers of this time were seen as protectors of the land, guarding those mobs who could not guard themselves. If it was a match for the creepersaurus, though, was yet to be determined. These two beasts, the last of their kinds, had no mate to travel on board the Ark with. With no skin in the game and nothing left to lose, they understood that this fight might just be their last. Nevertheless, the creeper beast was not deterred and accepted the challenge of the ancient sniffer, charging at it with its full might. As the two titanic terrors clashed, the unicorns watched on in awe. The creeper delivered a devastating blast of poison on the sniffer, with the sniffer returning a deathly blow with its razor-sharp tusks. Sensing an audience, the sniffer turned to the unicorn family as if to say, "Go!" And so they did. The unicorn family took off, leaving their pursuer and savior both behind as their roars echoed throughout the land. They may have been saved in the moment, but unfortunately for the unicorn family, this detour had brought them dangerously off course. Now more than ever, they needed to book it. With only a few short days remaining until the rain started, it was not looking good for them. Even with the odds stacked against them, the unicorns persevered and continued on their march towards the Ark, eager to join the rest of the animals in the safety of its hull. Meanwhile, back with Noah's family, progress on the Ark had been steady, and it was nearing completion. Just in time, too, as 2 by 2 groups of animals began to show up, expectant of shelter. Noah and his family greeted the animals warmly and offered them temporary lodging as they began final preparations on the Ark.
This is it. The animals are arriving.
Praise be to God they heard the message.
Look at them all! This is incredible!
2 of every creature on Earth. Is this all of them? Will we have enough space even?
We must. It is God's will.
And what of our timeline? Are we on track?
One final day before the flood is upon us.
Noah then turned and faced the heavens, calling out to God above.
Lord, give me a sign to know that we still have time.
As if in response, the clouds grew gray, and a lightning bolt erupted down from the heavens and struck the earth nearby. There couldn't have been a more obvious display of approval for Noah. With that signal in place, Noah continued to work. Noah and his family finished up the roof, and just in time, too. The lightning bolt had not only been a sign of God's approval, but also the harbinger of the rains. Drops began to fall from the sky as dark clouds continued to form up above. Before long, the rain became a downpour. There was only one problem, though. The Ark still wasn't complete. The animals and mobs outside began to grow restless, having been assured by God that they would be saved. Noah toiled relentlessly, but for some, it wasn't fast enough. The piglin strider mounts displayed uncharacteristic nervousness as the rains began to pour. Their bodies quivered and shivered as the water droplets fell all around them. They were not happy. Their piglin riders tried to settle them down. After all, it would only be a short few hours before the Ark was complete. The striders were simple beasts, however, and could not be reasoned with. They took off into the wilderness, away from the Ark. The piglins themselves were torn. The striders had been their closest allies and companions. Noah's son Ham, who had developed a fondness for the piglins, approached them with an appeal as the rain poured down around them all.
Your mounts will not survive the flood. You must focus on saving yourselves, my friends.
The piglins, however, were too honorable to leave their beloved striders behind to die. With a final wave goodbye, the piglins took off after their companions, leaving Ham stunned. That is true friendship, Ham thought to himself, but then quickly turned his attention back to the remaining work on the Ark. The piglins and striders were not going to make it on board, a fact that deeply saddened Ham. He entered the Ark looking despondent. Ham's wife Zedcat noticed his attitude change and approached him as the rain continued to pour outside.
Ham, are you all right? What troubles you?
The piglins. Their striders could not last in the rains. Neither of their species will survive past tomorrow, despite everything they did to help us achieve God's vision.
Ham's words were full of warning. Zedcat could tell that the son of Noah was having doubts once more. Like Emzara before her, she knew she had to intervene, lest Ham fall prey to the sin of sloth.
Listen to me, Ham. These creatures are all part of God's plan for us. They had their part to play and they fulfilled it. Now it's our turn to help your father before the floods wash us all away. The others are all counting on us to see this through to the very end. I'm sure your new friends would not have wanted you to deny yourself your destiny.
You're right. Thank you.
Ham and Zedcat rejoined the build effort, and the rain continued to pour as Noah and his family put the final finishing touches on the Ark. It was nearly done. The last remaining component was a mighty door and ramp to lead the animals on board, and with a final few well-placed wood blocks, it was finished. Thunder clapped above as Noah began boarding procedures, allowing access to the animals 2 by 2. Strangely, all of the mobs were acting civilized with each other. Hostile and friendly mobs alike seemed to understand that if they wanted to survive, then they'd have to put their differences aside and stave off their hunger for now. As Noah let the last of the animals on, he took a final look at his family as they gathered around him. For the past week, none of them had known rest, and the heavy workload had taken its toll on all of them. But Noah knew in his heart that their work had only just begun.
My beloved family, I cannot thank you enough for what you have done. God has blessed us this past week by making us the instruments of His divine will. We have brought about the salvation of these species and, yes, the world. But our work is not yet done. We ourselves must survive the coming waters. So, all aboard!
As the waters began to rise all around them, Noah and his family boarded the Ark. Each of them took up a post on various parts of the ship to ensure a lookout for craggy cliffs and sharp spires hidden in the ocean waves that would spell certain doom for the vessel if not steered clear from. With everyone on board, Noah took one final look into the horizon to ensure that there were no stragglers. Confirming this to be the case, and with a heavy heart, Noah sealed off the Ark's entrance. He knew he had done all he could. Anyone left over would be up to God to sort out. Close by, the unicorn family sprinted as they just barely spotted the Ark in the distance. The sight confirmed their worst fears, that they had missed the boat and thus were doomed. Shaking off the utter despair of defeat, they nevertheless raced forward, not willing to accept their fate as simply mobs left behind. As they desperately traversed into the ocean, the Ark departed, without them on board. They looked on as they waded in the water, forlorn and weary from travel, having just missed their one chance at salvation. The waters continued to rise all around them, and everything seemed hopeless. The family took what they thought was one last look at each other as they finally accepted their demise. Fate, however, had other plans. A sharp squealing sound was heard off in the distance. As the family turned to look at the cause of the noise, a strange sight graced their eyes. It was one of the piglins who had helped Noah, beckoning them over to it. And that's not all. Behind the piglin was some sort of ringed structure, made out of obsidian blocks. In the center, a brilliant purple haze pulsated an invitation. With nothing left to lose, the unicorn family quickly ran to the piglin, accepting its offer. Ensuring the little one's safety first, all 4 of them entered into the purple haze, with the piglin taking one last look at the overworld before disappearing with a flash, just as the waters overtook the structure forever. For Noah and his family, life on the Ark had just begun. God had told Noah that for 40 days and 40 nights the rain would pour, the flood waters would rise, and the earth would be destroyed. The Ark would carry those chosen to safety, while the world around them was destroyed. As the rains continued, the water level rose and rose, lifting the Ark high above the world around them. The waters rose so high that the Ark was now even with his neighbor's village, which had been atop a nearby mountain. As the Ark passed by, a crowd of villagers and his 2 neighbors beckoned to the vessel from the shore. Noah! Thank God! Please, let us board your mighty vessel. We'll not survive without your aid. Noah approached the side of the boat, looking down on the unfortunate souls gathered before him. He spoke not in pettiness, but in truth. He simply could not allow them on board, especially after they had defied God.
You have chosen the path of wickedness. Even as I offered you shelter just a few short days ago, you mocked me. And thus, you mocked our Heavenly Father. You will now carry the weight of your sins.
This is ridiculous! How are we supposed to know?
Faith, I am sorry, all of you, but I cannot let you aboard. The waters would rush into the Ark's entrance, and all the creatures of Earth would be doomed. I will pray for you.
As the Ark continued on its way, the flood waters rose once more, washing away the villagers who mocked Noah, God, and the Ark. The neighbors of Noah were no more. Their sin washed away along with the rest of mankind. As Noah's neighbors' bodies fell to the ocean floor, though, something took root inside of them. Their bodies' natural skin tones faded away, giving way to a dark blue-green color. Their clothes became tattered as their hair turned mossy and gross. It seemed they would go on living after all, but as the zombified creatures known simply as the Drowned. With their new bodies, they shuffled along the sands, standing now as monuments to their own sin. Meanwhile, inside the Ark, tensions amongst the mobs were running high. Emzara was trying to control the animals from attacking each other, but even with its great size, the Ark was more cramped than expected, and tempers were beginning to flare up. A truce to board the Ark peacefully was one thing, but bunking beside your natural predator for 40 days and 40 nights was something else entirely. Emzara took her concerns to the top deck, where she conversed with her husband Noah.
My dear husband, the many mobs in the lower decks are growing restless. I do not know how much longer we can keep them from tearing each other apart.
Have faith, my wife. God did not command us to build this ark without thinking of every precaution.
Well then, what does he have in mind?
He wasn't specific, but acting as his instrument, I say we build cages.
True to Noah's word, cages were constructed during the journey, isolating some of the more violent mobs from their peaceful neighbors. No one said the trip was going to be easy, but for a mob to come this far only to perish aboard the Ark would be a tragedy that Noah would not allow. As the rainy days aboard the Ark turned to rainy weeks, Noah's family again came to him with problems. This time, it was his son Japheth, who had an issue with the Ark's integrity. He approached Noah cautiously on the deck.
Father, I do not mean to disturb you. Is this a bad time?
Of course not, Japheth. What troubles you?
It's the lowest level. I was checking for leaks, and, well...
You found one?
Indeed, a sizable one at that. Another few days and we'll sink to the ocean floor if we don't find something to block the leak.
Well, what do you suggest, my son?
Well, we used all of our leftover material to build the animals' cages and keep them safe. So I suggest an expedition.
An expedition? You not see the world around us? Everything and everyone is below water.
Not everything.
Japheth motioned Noah to look out over the ocean. In the distance, illuminated by crackling lightning and punctuated by echoing thunder, a large mountaintop jutted out from the surface. Noah looked towards the spire cautiously, knowing that this would be a dangerous detour, but one they had to make if they were to survive.
I will make the journey myself.
Father, no. You must remain here. God has bigger plans for you. I will go.
You cannot make this journey alone, Japheth. I forbid it.
Another of Noah's sons, Shem, overheard the two men and quickly joined in the conversation.
What's this about a journey? I'm in.
With great reluctance, Noah eventually gave in to his sons, on the condition that Shem and Japheth would go together. They were to get the materials needed to plug the leak, and then return. There was no telling how much time they had left, but it definitely wasn't a lot. With that in mind, Noah steered the Ark directly towards the jutting mountaintop, to its first and only stop on its long path to salvation. As the Ark came up alongside the mountain, Japheth and Shem quickly disembarked and made their way inland through a pass lined with azalea trees, the clock still ticking as the Ark slowly filled with water behind them. A surprising amount of the mountain was still above water, and Shem delighted in his time back on dry land.
I'd nearly forgotten what it feels like to not be seasick all the time.
Let us not delay. The rain continues. If we are not careful, this land too will be swallowed up by the flood whilst we dawdle.
You're too serious, brother. God is looking out for us, yes? Then it is fate that we succeed.
Do not mistake coincidence for fate, brother. God has given us the means to survive, yes, but it is our actions that have brought us this far. If we falter now, then the Ark will be doomed.
Shem followed his brother's lead as the two ventured into a nearby lush cave. It felt good to escape the rain, if only for a short time. The two descended deeper and continued on their hunt for a very specific resource: clay. With enough clay, they could plug the leak and ensure the Ark remained afloat for the remainder of the 40 days and 40 nights. The brothers thought gathering the clay would be a simple task, but what they encountered next, they could have never prepared for. Shem was the first to see it.
There, Japheth, look!
Japheth turned to see what Shem had called to him about, and there it was, a block of clay, seemingly floating further within the darkness of the cave.
What the? How is it doing that?
Is it not obvious? It's a gift from God, just as I said. He truly is looking out for us. Now, let's grab it and be well away from this place.
Japheth was more wary than his brother, but nevertheless, he approached the floating block cautiously, only to realize a disturbing fact all too late. The clay was not floating at all, but rather it was being held by a strange creature neither brother had ever seen before. It looked almost human, but its pitch-black body had long, spindly limbs, and it was much taller than any man alive. The most obvious difference, though, was its set of glowing purple eyes that Japheth had just stared at for far too long. The creature was frightening, but that clay was their only hope of survival, and so Shem and Japheth drew their swords and bravely attacked the unknown creature. This sudden assault caused the creature to drop the clay, and Shem seized the opportunity by grabbing it in haste.
I've got it! Let's get out of here!
Japheth had no intention of sticking around and quickly followed behind Shem as they made their way back to the cave's entrance. The brothers did not stop to catch their breath as they ran out of the cave. They could feel that the creature was somehow keeping pace, moving at breakneck speeds in what seemed like a blink of the eye. Shem and Japheth made it just in time back to the Ark, utilizing a nearby hill to hop directly back on the ship's deck. Back aboard the Ark, Japheth and Shem ran towards the bow, where their father Noah was already waiting, their father ready to steer away from the island.
Look at this. You came back in record time. Did you manage to find something to fix the leak?
The brothers stood solemnly, presenting the single clay block they found.
We managed to find one block of clay, but I fear it will not be enough.
Just then, the men heard the same guttural bellow from before off the bow. They looked over the side of the Ark, only to see the strange creature standing down below, with the heavy rainfall pouring around it. Another creature, looking identical to the first, suddenly popped into existence beside it in a flash.
This is getting out of hand. Now there's two of them.
Shem's worries seemed to be unfounded, as the creatures suddenly presented something within their hands, more clay blocks. Shem quickly put two and two together.
Let them aboard. What was that, son? Are these not the monsters that attacked you?
Shem considered this, but something in his heart told him that this was the right thing to do.
Father, did God not say we were to bring two of every creature aboard? Just like Ham with the piglins, I believe these creatures to be friendly. I think they want to trade those clay blocks for refuge.
Noah thought hard on this as the waters continued to rise around the two mobs down below. It was now or never.
You are a wise man, son. You there! Come aboard!
Noah called down to the creatures and, in a flash, they teleported directly onto the deck.
If they could do that the whole time, why did they bother asking?
Some creatures still have manners.
With the additional clay blocks, Japheth was able to plug the leak in the lower deck of the Ark, ensuring that its integrity would remain intact for the rest of the voyage. With his two new passengers aboard, Noah steered the Ark away from the mountain as it was gobbled up by the rising waters. The horizon was now made up of only the Ark and an expanse of blue-gray waves. Shem approached his father once more.
Father, do you think the world will ever be the same again? Perhaps, or perhaps not, Shem. But we must hold on to hope and our faith. We are the keepers of life now, and God has set us on this path for a reason. All we can do now is, well, see it to the end.
As the 40 days and 40 nights passed by, eventually the storm subsided. The rain slowed and the clouds began to break out. Noah celebrated as the Ark slowly began to drift downward. Before long, the Ark settled in place as the land beneath it was revealed once more. Noah stepped onto the green grass surface of the new world. His extended family soon joined him as they reflected on their long journey and celebrated that it had finally come to an end. The sun shined down on them all from above, and from the heavens, God emerged once more.
Noah, you have done well, you and your family. Because of your actions, I establish this covenant with you.
Suddenly, a brilliant rainbow appeared in the sky as God continued to speak.
Never again will I curse the ground because of humans, and never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night, all will never cease.
Then God blessed Noah and his sons, saying to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth." And with that, God departed once more. The many animals and mobs of the ark roamed freely as the rainbow hung high in the sky above, a sign of the covenant between God, Noah, and the rest of mankind. And thus concludes the untold story of Noah's Ark.